conversation, we got to talk about the TJ Ward thing because I'm very fired. You probably don't even care that much, but I'm fired up about this TJ Ward.
I care zero much.
Okay, but I do care because it's ridiculous, and I'm saying it's not. We'll save it. Sorry.
There's one former safety's opinion I care about, and it's this guy right here.
Thank you.
That's it. He is, and now he's a member of the media, even though he refuses to accept that. All right, let's get to the. So, Zach, we have 5 people we know they're talking to. Can you guys bring the list up again? Tyvis just said that he thinks the next head coach, is definitely coming from this list, which to me is a depressing thought. And he said part of the reason it's from this list is because the Browns can dictate who the coordinators will be. I hate everything he said there, even though he may not be wrong.
I hate that thought. I think
Yes.
he's probably wrong.
Okay.
To me, Jeff Hafley, Chris Shula, and Robert Saleh are at the top of the list.
Okay.
And they all coach this weekend, so they can't interview until at least next week.
Okay,
so they're not
I'm excited about that. I was like, this listing's Minimowski. I said, you got something else for me? Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
So through the years of this madness, in college we have just you coach and search whenever, right?
Right.
So
Sure.
they've kind of streamlined it. So you can't do in-person interviews until at least the 19th. So this week, if you're out of the playoffs, you can do a Zoom interview. Or if you're the number 1 seed, Denver or Seattle, you can do a Zoom interview, which is why you saw Seattle's defensive coordinator on that list.
Right.
Which is why you're seeing some of the Denver assistants on that list. So you can set those up for next week, but those guys who work for teams playing this weekend cannot talk to teams formally until at least next Monday.
Okay.
And then if they're winning and they push it back and you really want to talk to the guy, then it's pushed back even further.
Yeah.
So there's no doubt to me that Rams coordinators, that Robert Saleh has to be a guy that you talk to, right? So I just, and to me, Jeff Hafley's at the top of the list.
Why Jeff Hafley at the top of the list?
Because he's the anti-Stefanski in terms of the outward enthusiasm.
I like
because he's climbed that path. He's ready to be a head coach. Is he going to knock out the interview? Is he going to be the right guy? I don't know. But he gave up a college head coaching gig to come to the NFL. He's succeeded in 2 years as Green Bay's defensive coordinator. He's the kind of guy that you talk to. And he's the kind of guy that lights up the room and isn't afraid of the microphone, isn't afraid of the challenge, isn't afraid of telling the truth every now and again.
Need that.
And so I'm like, Jeff Hafley fan club.
Do you know him personally?
I do. You know how I know
Tyvis
Jeff
played
Hafley?
for him.
He was my DB coach.
Yeah.
Hafley is the only.
How did you not mention
he
him
is
already?
What's going on with you, bro? You're supposed to be had this in the table.
All right, break it down now.
Hafley is the only coach that I had in the NFL that was 100% honest with me. That to this day.
So you love that?
Oh yeah, me. and
Not
Hafley
every
was
player
great.
loves that.
Yeah, no, he was
Yeah.
like no. When I say that, I say like so. I was in San Fran.
Yeah.
I had got there. I was on like practice squad, and he was like, I had balled out in practice all week. He goes at the end of the week. He goes, you know what? He said, Tyvis, you've earned the right to play in this game. I'm gonna get you in this game. I was like, Half, I'm on practice squad. What are you talking about? He said, trust me. I said, okay.
Yeah.
Sure enough, Saturday he said we're gonna elevate you for the game. I said, okay, check that out.
So
but
he
I'm still sitting. I'm at the game
Yeah.
like Half. You not about to put me in the game.
Yeah.
We get up there. We get till about the second quarter. He walk up to me. He go, you ready?
Yeah.
I said, oh, you serious? So boom, we out there. So he was the first person to like keep it real. And he's just a genuine guy. And it's so funny because I talked to Half because Half was here. He used to work in Cleveland. He was here with
Mike Petty.
Yeah,
14 and
Dante
15.
Whitner and all them
Yeah,
was
yeah.
the DBs and all of that. So
Yeah.
he would tell us about his time in Cleveland. He'd be like, it's like, yeah, I'll go back to Cleveland for sure. He said, I love my time in Cleveland. I actually
right.
liked it there.
Okay.
So it's funny to see like it come full circle. Obviously he went to
Yeah.
Ohio State and I followed him there. We had a
Yeah.
great relationship at those State and stuff like that. So yeah, if Half got the job, I'd be all for that.
It's interesting that even as a DB coach with you in San Francisco, with a great, a very good head coach, he had enough juice to get Tyvis on the roster there.
Yeah,
Like the
Half,
position
that's my
coach.
guy.
I don't know
I seen
how-
Half when we played the
Yeah.
Packers. He was because I be in the press box. So
Yeah.
at halftime when they go sprinting by, he saw me. He goes, "Hey, let's talk. Me and you, let's link." And I forgot to text him.
Now I really want to be a head coach because then we got the inside scoop.
Now
on it.
I like that energy level.
Yeah.
I like that because some of these
I still
names-
think it's coming off of one of them that list though.
no, look,
I just do.
You can't think Tommy Reese is a legitimate
that's-
candidate.
I don't, but I
Zach,
just
Zach.
Zach, would you
I couldn't
say
do that. I
would
couldn't
you
do
say that if you was all right, let's realistically, head coaches get how many years as a head coach?
2, realistically.
Okay, right. Would you say next year is going to be a good year for the Browns?
Probably not.
Okay, so
Right,
now
but-
we
but
down
guys,
to
but wait a
1
second.
year.
But Tyvis,
we down
if they
to
won
1 year.
If they won 6, 7
That
games
Kevin
last
just
year.
got fired, and they knew this roster was
But
terrible.
If they won 6, 7 games with either a rookie quarterback or Shador Sanders or maybe a veteran who's never really done much before, you wouldn't look at that as a bad first season.
I wouldn't fire the coach with
for a rookie coach.
Right.
But the next
Hey,
year,
Tyvis, in the aftermath of Kevin officially getting fired, which was decided for weeks, we heard both the owner and the GM say we expected better.
Yeah.
So they're expecting better.
So
Yeah.
you got to hold them to what they want. They say
Right.
now. For me, because you do.
Whoa.
I think 6, 7 wins would be fine next year. Tyvis is going to be here picking 11, but the rest of us are
Wait. Hold on. Let's stop right there. Hold on. Wait, because I need to expand on this.
Time out.
I need to
Go ahead.
expand on this.
Yeah.
You said that they expected better.
Yeah.
When you looked
That's
at
what they
this,
said.
when you looked at this roster, did you expect better?
I picked them to win 3. They won 5.
So they overachieved.
This is sad.
Vegas had him at 4.5. They won.
Vegas had them at
Yeah.
4.5. Most of us picked
Right.
between
The Vegas
three and
over under went down to that kick.
Everybody in America did not have the Browns winning that many games.
many did they win?
But me.
They won 5.
So I don't understand how all of a
that's
sudden.
that's what Andrew Berry and Jimmy Haslam said.
Now look.
And they cap. You believe what they say?
of course not.
Say for instance, if you look at the Jets game, now here's the flaw in this. Every game I could look at that to say you won.
Yeah.
I could look at it and say, yeah, you should have lost that game
Right.
based on this.
That's
Yeah.
the NFL.
It's NFL, ebbs and flows. So you didn't win them. So you are, who said it? You are what your record said.
Yeah.
So if they tell me that they want to do better next year and their expectations is, I think they got to do 7 games. They at least got to win 7. But my thing is, Tommy Rees is a coordinator. He just doesn't have the resume to be a guy that you.
That's
seriously
insane.
consider.
He's been in the NFL for 2 years.
That's not.
Well, what we just talked
Yeah.
about is
Yeah.
Jim Schwartz's one path to getting this job. And that's that he's clearly loved by the players.
Yes.
He's been the best hire this organization's made in years.
Yes.
And throughout this bad year where all these games won or lost and the offense didn't win, the defense balled out. The defense carried them to those last 2 wins,
Yeah.
right? And like Jim Schwartz has been a head coach before, like there's a lot to say. So
Yeah.
if you think this team should and needs to win X amount of games, and you think that the way to catapult this whole thing forward, as
Right.
you're still basically starting from scratch on offense, is to keep that defense together and be able to be in those situations, Garrett, where maybe it goes your way and maybe it doesn't. That's the case for Jim Schwartz. Now, Jim Schwartz is older. Jim Schwartz knows the warts of this organization, knows being in here. Maybe he doesn't want it. Maybe he's not right. Maybe what he thinks for offensive coordinator for fixing the offensive line is not what they see. But if you really think that next year you need to be in that mix, and if you'd only won 1 or 2 more games this year, December would have been different because you would have been playing AFC North significant games. Who knows what that's going to be going forward, right?
Yeah.
But that's the case for Jim Schwartz. I consider Jim Schwartz an outsider. I don't think they want to hire Jim Schwartz, but that's my gut feel.
Yeah. I mean, I would take him over anybody else on that list, but I just hope it doesn't come to that.
Do you think Jim Schwartz gets the job because he knocks them out of the park, or knocks the interview out of the park, or he gets the job because one of the other guys that they wanted wasn't on the list?
I think Jim Schwartz's path is they do the interviews, a couple of other guys, somebody takes a job elsewhere, somebody has hesitation, or the Browns have hesitation, right? They're going to interview maybe upwards of 10, 12 guys. They're going to realistically consider 6, 7 guys, Garrett. Ultimately, you're going to land on 2 to 4. Right, so if a couple of those, for whatever reason, another job, they're not sure. Now you're on. Okay, now here's our path. Right, the defensive locker room is going to be excited. This is a guy that clearly has kept a steady ship through this mess.
Yeah.
Right. Like, why do I look at Saleh? Because he coached the Jets. They're a disaster.
Yeah.
Like, experience matters. This organization is a disaster. Jimmy can say it's not dysfunctional. These guys got it wrong. Well, you fired one of them for not winning, and you kept the other one, rewarding the worst trade in NFL history.
That is fact. That is a fact. There's no doubt. But Tyvis made the point on Saleh in particular. You know, Hafley would be his first gig, so it's different. Saleh was with the Jets. Now he goes to the Browns, arguably the 2 worst organizations in the sport. If he gets fired, he's probably not getting a third job.
No, very rarely does that happen.
So
Why would he take it?
Well, we don't know what his motivation to be a head coach again is. We don't know what his situation in San Francisco is. Been pretty steady out there for losing all his guys, right? They're always a contender.
They've done a great job.
Yeah, they lost everybody, and they're balling.
Do you think Hafley's going to be in high demand for other teams?
He's already been requested. Like I said, he can't be on the formal list.
So it's going to be hard for the Browns, right?
I don't know, Bull. I mean, they're going to come quickly when they start coming off the board.
Yeah.
Now, there's 8 openings, right? So, and if you consider that Harbaugh might not take this job, but I don't know. That's a good question, but I don't think Hafley's in position to do that. I think Harbaugh's probably the only one in position to say no thanks. Or if you get into like the Signetti, Dan Lanning guys, who are, if you would call them, they're going to
Well, Zach, about that, do you think, because Harbaugh said he doesn't want to interview till next week, and obviously some of the guys you mentioned earlier that they're still coaching, like they can't actually interview until next week when they're done playing. Mm-hmm. Do you think it's going to be Harbaugh as the first domino to fall, then we'll see all the others get filled, or do you think teams, unless they're explicitly told by Harbaugh, and I'll ask in Cleveland's perspective what you think about him in Cleveland, they'll wait until he makes a decision before actually going forward and hiring someone else?
It's an interesting one, Mike, because not only do you have the Rooney Rule that mandates it, but you have the reality of just because if you get an interview with Harbaugh doesn't mean he's going to take it. So you have to go about your business, right? Yeah. Like these teams are interviewing Stefanski because they consider him a legitimate candidate. And everybody's got to get to the 19th to do these in-person interviews. So you wouldn't just stop. If whoever Harbaugh interviews with, there probably is a short list. He probably would say, like, I'm doing this because, but you don't know that it's going to work. You don't know what his demands are going to be, what his fit's going to be.
Yeah.
So you still have to go about your business. And I hear all the people saying they're interviewing for coordinators, they're doing this. I'm not saying they're wrong, but you have to use this as an opportunity to get to know guys. You have to go in with your ideas and what you want. And if they get challenged by somebody that you interview, that can only benefit you going forward, right? You have to be open-minded and patient in this process. If the Browns don't have a coach until January 30th or even the day after the Super Bowl, that doesn't matter. For 26 years, it's been a race to nowhere. Yeah. This is not a race right now.
You mentioned Hafley and you mentioned Saleh. Who was the third guy? You mentioned the third guy that we don't have on the list.
Chris Shula, the Rams defensive coordinator.
Is he David Shula's son or nephew?
Yes.
David Shula was the worst coach I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And so I've now poisoned his son because I'm like, well, he can't be any good. His dad was the worst.
Yeah, so he was a Miami, Ohio teammate of McVay.
Okay.
And then he was actually the coordinator at John Carroll just down the street here for 1 year, and before his second year, he got his first NFL opportunity. And then he's been back with McVay ever since, I think, since 2017. Okay. 2 years as Rams defensive coordinator. He's going to be on the list. Not
the
yet
McVay
40
tree
years old. The McVay tree
is pretty good, outside of Zach Taylor.
I sent you the list yesterday, and, I'll read it for people here. But
it's a great tree.
Some of the guys on the – let me scroll up to find the text. Where was it? There's a lot of text in the group chat yesterday.
Jeez, come on now.
But Liam Cohen, Mike LaFleur, Matt LaFleur. I can't find the text, and I'm just going off the top of my head.
Mike LaFleur supposed to be getting, opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, because he's in the McVay thing, I don't think that he's at the top of
Right.
And Mike McDaniel just got let go. Are you interested in any sort with Mike McDaniel?
I think certainly. I think maybe more to be Saleh's offensive coordinator. That's to be the head coach.
I like that.
If Saleh took the job,
but I think Garrett, if you value head coaching experience, and we don't know if they do or not, it's a short list, right? There's Saleh, there's Schwartz. Like Mike McDaniel's available. He wants to talk to you. I think you talk to him. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I totally believe, like Jeremy Fowler leaked that 10 days or so ago. Mm-hmm. If this happened, the Browns would be interested. I totally believe that.
Yeah.
So what happens is we're all on the outside. We're waiting. So every time there's an interview request pops up, we jump to conclusion. Right. Like, who thinks the Browns are hiring Seattle's defensive coordinator?
No.
But, is he an up-and-coming guy? Should you talk to him?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Yeah, right? Especially he's available this week. He's been with Mike McDonald. He's been with Clint Kubiak. Like, he's playing against these teams that these other guys are coaching against. Like, talk to him.
You don't think Dan Pitcher is getting the job?
I think Dan Pitcher's a realistic candidate. I think he's in the second tier.
Yeah.
I'm the one that tweeted that on Sunday. Let me take my victory lap.
You know what? I shouldn't make fun of it because Joe Burrow likes Zach Taylor too.
Dan Pitcher's like the next Kevin Stefanski. He even looks like him. Right? He was almost the same age when he got hired. He's going gray a little early. He's been in the same organization for a long time, various background. Like, this is the next Kevin Stefanski.
Zach had the best line of Todd Monken. You called him a grumpier Kevin Stefanski.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm cool. I don't want that. I'm cool on that. He's been here before. What do you make of all this stuff going on in Baltimore? Is it him? Was it Lamar? Was it the team didn't like Monken? And then the Browns the three-dimensional chess. Did the Browns make the move for them? So Harbaugh had to say, what are your thoughts?
Browns are not smart enough.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of splits going on. I think the defensive coordinator struggled. I think that the personnel department thought this was the year that they'd clean some things up. it never clicked with the offense even before Lamar got hurt and missed all that time. And when he came back, he wasn't the same guy. So that will go. Ultimately it came out that Harbaugh didn't want to get rid of Monken. Maybe he was being pushed to by the GM or by team ownership.
Yeah.
But, their offensive line wasn't good enough and Lamar wasn't available enough. So these things happen. When you're in that situation, like everybody thought Baltimore, this was their year, me included. And it doesn't work out. And
you miss the playoffs. I could see, yeah.
I don't think from November 15th on that Harbaugh knew he was coming back, right? And I'm not putting words in his mouth, and maybe he'll eventually talk about it, maybe he won't. But when you're supposed to be here and you're only there, and there's a lot of things going on, that's what this is. Like having this job for 2-3 years is a long, long time. Having this job for 18 years,
Crazy,
insane.
It's crazy.
I mean, they fired Brian Billick because he was kicking to Josh Cribbs. He wouldn't stop kicking to Josh Cribbs.
Right.
That's how long ago that was.
That's when
Zach,
Chris
how much-
Tabor was running the special teams. Go ahead, Mike.
Zach, how much do you think the Browns' current quarterback room and their ability to find another quarterback, whether it's via draft, trade, free agency, will impact the candidates that are actually interested in taking this job?
Yeah.
If someone likes Shador and likes Deshaun, they're certainly more interested, and vice versa, may not be as interested, right?
I think, Mike, in the short answer department, I think it's a lot. Because if you're looking at somebody and they could go to Atlanta where they have an offense, or they could go to Tennessee or the Giants where Cam Ward and Dart are in place and they're not finished products, then that's easy. I think in any interview, though, you're going to look. What do you think about our quarterback room? What do you think about your coordinator? What is your vision for an offense going forward? All these jobs are open for a reason, right? None of them are fixed. So if you love Cam Ward, and Stefanski might, and maybe Harbaugh does, are you worried about the ownership there? Are you worried about the offensive line? There's no perfect fix, but I do think that it's more than fair to say other jobs are more attractive on the surface because the Browns are starting from scratch on offense, except for Harold Fannin and Quinshon Judkins.
Mike, did you say if there's a coach that likes Deshaun Watson?
I mean, if there's one out there,
Do you think there's any head coach that wants to go in a season with Deshaun Watson as their starting quarterback?
Right, I'm going to be the first-year head coach, and I'm going to fly my family in for this game, and we're going to start Deshaun Watson, and the home crowd's going to boo him before the game.
And he hasn't played well in 6 years?
Right.
It's
been disastrous.
I'm not saying it's impossible that he couldn't get his career back on track. Well, what coach would want to bet on that?
There's no evidence that he can.
Right.
Because especially, even if you think he's healthy and he's motivated and all these things he should be, what happened the last time he was rusty and away from football for a year?
Terrible.
It was a disaster.
Yeah.
Right? And then it just spiraled from there. It's a disaster.
Yeah.
Him being on the roster is a disaster.
Is he going to be on the roster?
Yeah, he almost has to be, Garrett. They have to take his number of a little above 80 million and cut it in half just to have a functional team. Now, there are ways around that, but they have so many needs to fill.
What is let's say that you're a coach. What about Cleveland is appealing?
They pay well.
Is that it?
The defense, it's one of 32. It's a young team. They just fired a guy for not being good enough. If they want you, they're saying we're onto something. Now, what you think long term, where you are in your career, is this your only chance? Is this your last chance? All of those things come in. But you're taking over a pretty good defense. You're getting a rare opportunity that you're not guaranteed to get, and it's one that you've worked for. And these guys have egos. They believe they can, and standing in front of that room and saying we can do this. I'm just drawn to. I knew that you knew Hafley, but everybody that I know that knows Hafley says this guy never has a bad day. Right? This guy comes in and tells you where you stand, tells you where he stands, tells you where the team stands.
That's what we
and
need.
Let's go forward. The human dynamics of this matter so much.
Yes.
And you don't win games in the press conference. Kevin Stefanski never lost a game because he was boring as hell in the press conference. Right? But what did that impression leave to us on the outside? That he wasn't commanding the room, that he wasn't in on the dynamics of the team. And these are long seasons, right? And you have good things, you have bad things, you have ruts. At the end of it, do you believe in the head coach and do you believe in the quarterback? That's how you get through whatever downturns that you have.
So I believe certain communication skills will keep you longer than maybe even what your performance says.
Yeah. Sure.
Because your communication skills, it lends you some sort of cachet. Like when they asked Myles Garrett, there's a reason why Jim Schwartz is looked at a certain way. When Myles Garrett was asked a question about Stefanski and continuity, I was like, man, that was a very damning conversation. He says, I don't care what happens. I want wins. And so when Tyvis and other people and other players are able to specifically say a person's name, give them an opportunity. I told Dustin yesterday, it's something to be said that somebody can shake your hand. It was 20 years ago. Remember the conversation that they had with you, and you say, man, you come away thinking, man, coach, I was on there for a cup of coffee. And he remembered that type of stuff
That's how Jim Tressel is.
endears you to people. Like Jim Tressel, I didn't even go to Ohio.
Jim Tressel will remember exactly where he saw you from.
That's
what
right.
y'all talk. It's ridiculous.
It's crazy.
It's ridiculous.
And we was doing like an event at the National High School Hall of Fame, and I was doing the MC, and Jim Tressel comes up and has a conversation about something with me and Mike Doss, and I'm like, I didn't go to Old State, but he remembered exactly a story third hand. I said, this dude is crazy. I said, man, that's why I told him you might want to get into politics, and listen, here he goes.
No, but if they hired Jeff Hafley, yes, on Tuesday I said the two people that I would go for if we're going off of, coaching experience, I said I wanted Robert Saleh or Cliff Kingsbury. I didn't even realize that Hafley was the guy that was going to be a high in demand, because to me, that's slam dunk to me.